Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. And I am super excited for this episode because you've got one of the best people on this planet that will talk about business, knows everything about business, has done so many things that we can literally talk with him all day long around different aspects of business. And I'm super excited about what he's going to be talking about today. And in fact, it's going to be around this new book he's creating. Mike, oh my goodness, thank you for coming onto the show. I am super excited to learn, or for all of us to learn, what you're going to be teaching us today.
Okay, thank you so much for the introduction. And I've got to say, I love what you've been doing in the podcast arena. I think that, before we do anything, let's address the 900-pound elephant in the room, and that's Chat GPT. Some
Oh,
people have heard of that.
yes.
Uh, it's no big deal. I'd put it on par, say, with I don't know, the printing press or fire or electricity. Just a minor little change in the way that we're going to live our lives. And the reason I mention that is I have for the last 12 years been in the content creation business as a book publisher, helping executives and owners to get their ideas out of their heads and onto paper, and then coaching them on how to use those books to build their career. And it's great to be talking with Kay about it because she's been in a couple of my best-selling anthology books. So she doesn't talk much about that, but she'll be doing a new book on podcasting real soon too. Surprise.
Definitely, and I look forward to that for sure. Now,
Yeah,
you mentioned ChatGTP, right? And I'm so
yes.
glad that you brought that up because that is a hot topic right now, right? And
Yes, it
you
is.
can't get enough of it. And so there's one thing that actually came to mind. And there's a lot of kind of conversations going around about it that is it a good thing or is it a bad thing, right? Because the minute you
Well,
got
the answer is yes.
it was
The,
a bit of both.
it could be either one. It's a tool. It's just like a shovel is great for digging holes, but some people use it to hit other people over the head with. So does that make a shovel evil? No, it makes the person holding the shovel even. And I've heard the quote several places now that people don't need to be worried about ChatGPT taking their job. What they need to be worried about is their competition using ChatGPT taking their jobs. So
Ah,
the work still needs to be done. It's just some of the grunt work has shifted more and more to computers. And I got to do my first computer programming in 1970. And at that time, the reason I got to do it is myself and one other kid were the only ones that were disruptive enough. They wanted us out of math class. So they'd put us in the hallway with a teletype machine.
oh my goodness.
We had a ball. We were allowed to go buy acoustic coupler onto the University of Michigan's computer for 30 minutes a month. That was the total computer access because there were only a couple of mainframes in the whole state. GM owned two, a couple of the universities owned them. And was really interesting was they put us in the hallway with this machine, and there was no one to supervise us. I mean, there was not
Uh-oh.
a single teacher in the entire school, and this is a school of 4,000 people, so we had lots of teachers. Not a single one had ever touched a computer, not been trained on a
Wow.
computer. They had never touched a computer with their hands. They used to come by and want to type on the teletype to see what it was like. We
No
had a ball.
way.
Yeah, and
Wow.
that
So
was
you
back.
even just something that small, right? Like you have
Mm.
seen the world evolve so much.
Oh, you just can't believe I helped set mainframe computers for large institutions with my construction company in the late 70s. And a hard drive looked like a 50-gallon metal trash can. It had
No
disks that were
way.
like this big and that thick, and that's what they stored their information on, which was a huge leap forward from punch cards. So yeah, I've got to see a lot of it, and that's why I was in the development business for about 40 years. Had a little $60 million bankruptcy in 2008, and several Wall Street lenders suggested that I find a different way to make a living. A couple of them insisted.
Mm.
So that being the case, I looked around at how I could break into the internet market, and it was obvious that the experts were performing at a totally different level than anybody else trying to do it. I would say for every 1,000 people trying to earn a living on the internet, two were succeeding. So it was a tough business. And after coming from a business where if I called the president of a bank or I called the mayor of a city, they
Mhm.
put the other people on hold and took my call. So it was just a
Wow.
real real awakening to not get your emails responded to. Maybe you can answer this question for me,
Okay.
since you live in London. Why do people with an English accent, when they sing, why do they sing with an American accent?
Do you know what? I'm not too sure, but you know what the funny thing is? I do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
But
uh, uh,
that could be because we're listening to American songs and American singers,
no,
so we try to sound as good as they are.
no, the Beatles were just as bad at doing it. It's not that. What it is, I believe, is you're just accessing a different part of your mind, a very linear part when you sing.
Ah,
Whereas when you're in your regular conscious mind, it pulls from a lot of different places, and one of those places is where we keep our accents. Because it's the same in the U.S. A real Southern y'all kind of person doesn't sing like that. They sing the same way that someone from England sings, unless they're forcing their voice into a country style.
yeah,
So,
interesting.
we wanted to get ahead, Carolyn and I, and the one thing that we found that was unique for all of the top performers was every one of them had produced a book, and every one of them was a content creator. They were constantly bringing more information to the public, and they were getting rich doing it.
Wow.
So that was pretty exciting. Worked well. I mean, helped us to get on the map, and then pretty soon everyone wanted to know how we did it. So we happily showed them for a fee.
Wow. Wait, so
And
what kind of content creation were you creating, right? Because I'm assuming Facebook and Instagram and TikTok went around then, right? So what were you focusing on?
yeah, the internet was there at least. So I had that going for me. But it's there's a difference between content and information. And
Oh,
that's probably the biggest change. Content is taking a bunch of good information and putting it in an order so that it makes sense to other people's brains. And as opposed to just information, is here's a set of encyclopedias. For those of you that don't know, all of the world's information used to be in this row of about 20 books that altogether weighed about 250 pounds. And so if you wanted to get good grades in high school, you had to have an encyclopedia.
that's
Uh,
right. I remember those.
yeah, you see them at swap meets sometimes, it's being sold as antiques. But having said that, I saw that these people's biggest lack was time. And it does, to write a decent book takes, or did take, let me rephrase that, about 200 hours for a good writer
Oh,
to
wow.
create a book. And these guys that are making, $400 or $500 an hour, they don't want to spend 200 hours making a book.
Mhm.
So what we did was we developed a process where we would interview the guest, the expert, the CEO, the company owner,
Mhm.
uh, and pull all of the information that they'd gathered over the course of a very successful career that they wanted to share with other people. And they always, because it was a book, they tended to put their very best stuff in it. So, and it's amazing. A lot of people read a book and say, wow, if he'll put this much in a book for only $20, what'll happen if I actually hire him? Holy cow. And
Mhm.
the fact is, if they're smart, they put all the good stuff in the book too, because you can't protect ideas. You can patent ways of using ideas, but the ideas themselves, they're not patentable, just like AI currently is not copyrightable in
Right.
most countries. Uh, that will change, and because there's real issues, because now if I take something generated by AI and then I go through and tune it up to be just the way I want it,
Yeah.
is it now an AI creation or is it now a human
Oh,
creation? And all AI is doing is bringing facts in a order that makes sense to the language computer that's doing it. So it's really just guessing the next word, which is kind of what writers have to do.
yeah,
And so I would go through a series of interviews with these executives
yeah.
and pull out all the information. We called them brain dumps because we didn't funnel we didn't sort through the information at all. We just pulled everything they had out. Then when we did the first unedited manuscript, that's when they get in there with a red pencil and say, well, I didn't want to mention this person's name, or that idea isn't explained properly. I need to add a little more to it, that sort of thing. So that's where the unique human expertise really comes in at. And that's still true with Chat GPT. The difference is it has access to all the information, and
Mhm.
when it came out in November, it's hard to believe it hasn't been 6 months.
Right.
It had only been trained through 2021 on the internet. And
Oh,
that's still true for Chat GPT, but they've overlaid it with a program that does what Bing and Google do, that will search current information and pull it into the document. So it is up to today's information now. Just the from 21 through 23, the way it gets the information is a little different, a little slower, and it also though causes errors, uh, and everything it writes makes sense. I mean, it writes it in good English,
yeah.
very logical thought process because it's following a logical thought
Mhm.
process. The problem is when it sees bad information out there, it may interpret it as being good information.
Oh,
It may pull from a quote from some Harvard physicist that was actually some kid on Facebook having fun. And it can't differentiate that as well. It's getting better. It's getting better.
okay.
But the embarrassments you see with things like Bing when they first launched their Bard, yeah, it's a Bing Bard. No, it's Google Bard. Bard said some things that were a little silly, but it was probably 5% of the 100% that it creates. And I
Oh,
got to tell you, after north of 7,000 interviews, uh,
wow.
people make a lot of mistakes too when they're talking about their life
Right.
experience and everything. That's why we go through 5 or 6 editing versions before we get to the actual right version.
Right.
And ChatGPT is going to need the same thing. The difference is it instead of 200 hours to create, it takes 20 hours to edit.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's tenfold increase the speed at which a person can create their book. And that's exciting and it's frightening, both,
Yeah.
because that means anybody can put out a poor book. That's
Right.
very easy, and that's what let us. We still do full length books for some people that just want the thud factor, if you will, when they hand it to a client.
Yeah.
Uh, but we found that the best thing we could do was to rein these guys in. They're experts, but there's always one current thing that's top of mind for them. And
Mhm.
so in the Ideas Worth Knowing books, that's what we do, is we have a sponsor who's already an expert in the field, and then he conducts an interview with this person for a half hour to an hour, and then we produce a book that's got a lead-in section about the industry itself, the interview, and then a conclusion section to tell people what to do next. And so the
Oh,
books are very small. maybe 50, 60 pages is all. And of the 60 pages, 10 of them are fluff, title page, table of
Right.
content, the legal crap that we all feel the need to put in there. Uh,
I love your honesty, Mike.
well, I feel that anything I've ever created, anyone that wants to is welcome to steal it. I mean, I don't care. The more
Really?
you get the ideas that I created because I want the world to know them.
Right.
It's a little frustrating that the people don't pay you for all the work you did creating it. But as I said, you can't copyright ideas. So I'm actually happy when I see people posting sections of my book on their website like they wrote it. Although the first time that Kindle called me up and said that they were taking one of my books down because they found too many examples of it on the internet.
No way.
Yeah, so I lost the right to publish my own book on Amazon.
But it was other people taking parts of your book.
Yes, and they did so many of them that
Wow.
Amazon thought I was like, a license book or a white label or whatever.
Yeah.
Great education there. Uh,
Wow. That is insane. I've not heard of that one before.
it happens. It was during their push to try and get all of the real crappy republishing of private label rights books and that sort of thing. So they had to rein it in because they're taking care of the book buyer. But
Mm,
as a book creator, anything they do to stifle you frustrates you. So but that was fine. It was trying to think of the book. It was, oh, I wish I had the cover here. The name of the book was Never Put Frosting on a Turd.
oh, okay.
The graphics are off the hook.
Oh no.
But
I've got images in my head. I'm like,
yeah,
that is a catchy title, but at the same time, it makes you want to cringe.
yeah, well, it's a little turd holding a cupcake up. He's great,
Oh my
it's
goodness.
yeah, I've had so much fun with that. But my wife, who's the chief editor at the publishing company, though, that kills most of those ideas, I snuck that one out. She
Oh my
the
goodness.
latest one she killed was going to be called "Pick Up the Damn Phone," and I was using something more offensive than "damn," and
Mm.
she felt that that might offend some people. I feel that people need to be offended occasionally. So if we have a difference in philosophy there, we didn't
Yeah.
do the book. So
So it shows that she reins you in.
constantly, I can't tell you how many times my great ideas have been crushed by a group of unruly facts.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
Uh, but having said that, I want to go through the whole process of the new book because,
Please. Yeah.
but I want people to understand the idea is an expert reaching out to another expert to talk about one area of
Mm.
his expertise for a relatively short period of time. These books don't have, well, I started off and I was 7 years old and my parents bought me a pencil and
Oh my
you know
goodness.
no,
Wow.
what these books do is, hi, this is Kay. This is how you do podcasting. This is what podcasting will do for you. And this is how you get started. If I'm picking up something about podcasting, that's all I want to know.
Yes.
I'll figure out later on what style of microphone to use or whether to use a laptop's built-in camera or a separate camera or
Why
whatever.
don't you want that all included in the book?
Then you end up with a book that's too thick to get young people to read.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah,
you just kind of you want to make shorter books that gives people, I guess, it's easier to consume,
easier to
digest,
consume
and put
and
into
more
action.
compact. More
Yeah.
compact is the thing. Because see, until someone reads about what podcasts are, what they can do for you, and how to create them, they don't need any of that other stuff. Because if you can't win them over that creating a podcast is a good idea, then they don't need any of that other stuff. And remember, we're holding you out as an expert. with
Yeah.
the idea that if they do want more information about podcasting, they've got your contact information and they'll go direct to you and hopefully buy some of your services.
Right.
It'd be the same thing. I'm bringing in a guy that to write a book on syndicating apartment buildings, where you gather a group of investors together and then the syndicator buys this big building.
Hmm.
So we're creating a book for him about why investors want to look at syndication to diversify their income, how they do it, and what's involved with it. So it's a relatively short part of the topic. The book we did for him on how to do due diligence on an apartment building, that
Right.
was 250 pages
Oh, wow.
because it was a very complicated uh, mechanical thing that you
Mhm.
had to go from step one all the way through the last step. There was no bouncing around.
Wow.
So that being the case, uh, they were putting out this great information that wasn't being consumed.
Mhm.
People were being exposed to not as good information and believing it, misinformation, fake news. I mean, I loved everybody's probably seen the Pope in a giant Puff Daddy type white jacket.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I promise you, he did not need that jacket in Rome. I've been there, I'm sure of it. But it sure looked like he had the jacket on.
Right.
And that's become a huge problem. And Chat GPT has only magnified it in that there's used to be that the big five publishing companies were the gatekeepers on most information that got out into the world,
Hmm.
along with the company in England was Britannica. They're the ones
Yeah.
that invented encyclopedias. Uh, so there was a gatekeeper. So most, but not all, information that was in them was correct.
Mm.
We no longer have that gatekeeper.
Right.
So we need to either do enough due diligence on content that we consume now that we're comfortable that it was correct, or we need to go to a trusted expert that's already done the due diligence and has the information we need.
So, Mike,
Obviously, much simpler.
yeah, definitely. But so what I'm hearing from you is AI is great. AI is something that you use as well in your business, but we can't just rely on AI. We still need a human being to come in and personalize the content. Is that right?
Yes, and I would equate AI to being a very, very smart 9-year-old.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
and if you're going to let a really, really smart 9-year-old write your term paper, you're taking a little gamble there. Now he
Right.
might rough out the term paper for you, give you the order and all that, but man, you better go through and check every footnote in there, or you're going to get kicked out of school. And
Yeah.
there's two ways to approach uh, AI. And one way is to say it's evil. We're going to try and stop it. They tried that with booze in the 30s in the U.S. Didn't work out well. Uh, and the latest craziness with wanting to pause for 6 months. I noticed that all of the people that signed it that were famous
Right.
were behind the leaders. Not a single AI leader signed that.
No.
Yes, yeah, Elon wants him, Elon's developing his own AI. Of course, he wants you know, Microsoft to have to stop for 6 months. It gives them a chance
Whoa.
to catch up. And
Yeah.
what other country is going to stop because the U.S. said they were going to stop? Quite the opposite.
Right.
So that's it can and will have problems.
Mm.
Every tool has, computers, printers, printers made counterfeiting possible.
That's
You
right.
know, yeah,
Yeah.
you could, if you started hand drawing $100 bills, you get real tired before you caused any problem, especially the way my penmanship goes. But so it's not the tool. It's you know it's what can be done with the tool that's
Yeah.
scaring everybody so much.
Yeah.
And there's only two things you can do: hide from it or solve it. You know,
Right.
every problem that you ever get in life, you can either run away and hide from it or you can solve it. Every time I've run away and hid from a problem, it grew. I
Yeah.
mean, went from a little problem to a big monster that got all my attention. And I think that's what happens when you just try to put the brakes on a technology. Now, I'm not, I should mention that I did my last computer programming in 1972 because it didn't fit the way my brain processes things.
Right.
Uh, Now, the kid that started with me, he's probably locked in a basement in Silicon Valley doing programming to this day
Oh,
because
wow.
he was an idiot savant. I mean, literally didn't know to get out of the rain, but man, he could make that computer do amazing things.
Wow.
Yeah, we taught it to play tic-tac-toe, but he didn't really want to do it because he said it could throw a computer in a loop. And I'm like, what's a loop?
I was just gonna ask you the same thing. What does that mean?
Well, it means that if you've ever watched war games, it's impossible for a computer to win at tic-tac-toe because it knows both sides of the moves. So,
Oh, I
and
see.
and it
Okay.
keeps using more and more computer space trying to solve that problem.
Right.
And all I know is the dean of students walked down the hallway and always singled me out, not the other guy. And I won't say what his pet name for me was, but he said, Lewis, the University of Michigan just called and said, whatever you're doing on their computer, stop it now.
Mm,
We had tied up the whole university's computer. We had no idea. We just didn't know
wow.
what would happen, but we
Yeah.
found out. That's what happens when it goes into a loop. It makes a computer crazy.
Wow.
That was
Interesting.
great fun. Great fun for a 10th grader.
So, Mike, tell us a little bit about the process of you helping your clients with
Mhm.
creating this book, right?
Right.
Because you have got a structure there. There's a way of making sure that you put in the right
Mhm.
information in, valuable information, where people are going to want, the readers are going to want to know
Right.
more.
Yeah. I'm not an expert in every field, although sometimes I think I am.
I was going to say, yes,
Uh,
you are.
yeah.
Yes,
The the reality is, I don't know anything about podcasts. I just don't. Other than as a guest on podcasts, I've seen some of the mechanics,
uh-huh.
but I don't know what you do once you get the video in the can, how you post it, how you edit it. Do you do a transcript? Do you do timed? All the things that us consumers of podcasts expect and
Yeah.
enjoy. Those you had to know how to do. They didn't do themselves, I'm sure of that. So I rely on finding a sponsor that I personally know and trust. Like,
Right.
for example, I'm doing a real estate series with Lou Brown right now, we've got a 40 plus year relationship because we were both in the real estate business, and Lou's probably got the most longevity of any real estate coach in the world. Um, and also a genuinely nice human being. But Lou's my guy in the real estate portion of this exercise. He's what we refer to as the sponsor. So he's going to call up the other current experts, uh, like, oh, I can't remember David's last name, the flipping Boston guy. He's going to interview him about how it affects your real estate business to become an HGTV star.
Okay.
Which that to some people that have a goal of reaching that, that's going to be a really interesting topic. To the rest of us that think we have a perfect face for radio, we're not going to be interested in it. And
Right.
but it's up to Lou to sort out what's the current information in his industry and who are the trusted people to convey that information.
Yes.
And it benefits Lewis, the sponsor, because as the interviewer, like if we were taking this and making a book out of it, you'd be the co-author. So Lou is going to be the co-author of dozens of real estate specialty books. So you can imagine and they'll all have a similar cover. And so you can imagine the impact if you go to Amazon looking for real estate investment advice. And there's a couple guys with two or three great books, bestsellers, been there for years. And then there's Lou with 20 or 30 great books on the same subject, the odds are pretty good that they're going to at least want to see who this guy is,
Right.
whether they purchase his or not. And that's about all that publishing the book can do, is spur the people to contact you. And
So, do you suggest having several other different experts around that topic to be in the book
yes,
as well?
yes, the
Okay.
sponsor chooses the experts. No, not in the book. They each get a separate book. Because
So,
remember, we want concise information.
yes. So this was exactly the same that or the process that you created in the two books I was in as well. Right?
Those were anthology books. That's a little different in that I let each author, because they're paying to be in the book.
Mhm.
Shocker, isn't it, folks? Uh, we don't work for free. Uh, these people, because they paid to be in, have a specific message that they want to deliver, usually a little bit more commercial message than you would
Mhm.
normally put in an educational book. So
Right.
that's the difference. Plus, you're tucked in there with 20 other experts, so people got to kind of hunt for it. And if you use the book you were in as a business card, you got
Mhm.
to put your business card in where your chapter is and hand the book to them that way. You can't just hand them the book. And
Absolutely.
which is unbelievably powerful, because what I train my authors to do is never to just give a book away. Always take the 60 seconds to flip the cover open and handwrite something in there for the person you're giving it to. Even if it's just great luck with your podcasting venture, and then sign it. Because most people, even ones that are prolific readers, don't have any signed copies of an original print from an author.
Right.
They just don't. And so, even though signing your name to your 100th book you're giving away is no big deal to you, it is to the person that's receiving it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that little bit of customization means they'll never give that book away. They may buy a friend another copy of the book to give to them because they think it's so great. It's, like The E-Myth was a book that really changed my life, that and guerrilla marketing. And
Oh,
both of those people have become cohorts, cohorts, yeah, whatever that is. We've done a thing or two together.
great.
Michael Gerber and I and Brian Tracy and a guy named Tom Hopkins, who was a sales trainer.
Yeah.
We did a product once. Uh, it working with 2 out of 3 of those guys was great. Uh, you figure out which one, but I've done things like that, and they're this is to jump a little off topic. Almost all of the authors I've worked with the exception of 1 or 2 that I fired, want to put out great information. They
Yeah.
want to help people. I mean, don't
Absolutely.
get me wrong, they're using it as a marketing tool to try and make more money, but the more money they make, the more people they can help.
Yes.
And that's the attitude. Like Lou, for example, great expert, probably the foremost expert on putting property into trusts. And
Mm.
but what his burning passion is helping people get into affordable housing. So he created the certified affordable housing program to train other investors to become, he calls them caps. And all of them, their purpose is to try and get people that have no way of buying a house into becoming homeowners.
Mm.
And so he makes good money at it because he's very good. But he's literally affecting tens of thousands of people by working in this one little niche.
Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, I won't guess what his net worth is, but if he liked fancy cars and his Rolls broke down, he'd just go get a Bentley. Let's say that. Uh, and that's so it's not money that's motivating him. Gosh knows he travels an unbelievable amount around the country, and it's his drive to help people that does it. And that's true of almost all my authors. See, you want to make money in the podcasting business, but what you really want is to spread one of the most awesome tools you've ever learned into
Yeah.
England where it's not being used.
Exactly,
You know,
absolutely. And do you know what? The main thing, or one of the main things, you said so many great golden nuggets today, but one of the things that you said that if people aren't there to kind of bring value to the readers, to their audience, and they're all about themselves, you fire them, right?
I do,
You
yes.
you've got morals, you've got ethics, and there's certain people that you're going to be helping to get the word out there because they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with some of the brokers in New York that were so adamant that you should put all your money with Bernie Madoff, right up until he stole, you know, billions and billions of it. Uh, you know, those guys were lied to, and they believed it. I don't
Mm,
want to be any part of propagating lies. So
yeah.
if I feel uncomfortable with the person, there's enough people that I feel comfortable with. I don't have to work with them.
Right.
They'll eventually find someone that will, unfortunately. But no, it's the whole process hinges on sorting through the massive amounts of information and content that are now available to everyone and picking out the ones that are actually correct and that are also the information that you need at this time in your career. You
Hmm.
know, right now in your podcasting career, you probably don't need to know how Ken MacArthur is building a total digital studio in Philadelphia that has this curved, I want to say it's 100 foot, you know,
Wow.
and so if you're standing in that circle, the walls look, I mean, they don't look like what you're seeing behind me here, where you
Mhm.
see the little green stuff now and then. Uh, these ones, it's real pictures, just like
Yeah.
if it was a television standing behind you. So the things they can do with it are in the, oh my God, range. I mean,
Right.
I was at a studio similar to that here because I'm doing some stuff with some NBA players, and they showed us how they made a Honda SUV, I don't remember which one, drive on the moon,
Mm.
and then the drivers got out and were walking around on the moon. It looked real. I mean, if we'd had that technology, we probably could have faked a moon landing, but
Wow.
it didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
So um, but there again, that's the deep fake issue that everyone has to be careful of. You know, the easiest way to spot a deep fake is if they say anything that you know is out of character for them.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
like you know the Pope would never wear that tacky ass jacket. Yeah, you just know it. You know,
Right.
and so those type of deep fakes are easy. Some of the other ones, I don't know if you've been on Mike Filsame's intro into AI, because he's Groove is coming out with a big
Yeah.
lifetime AI product that I was fortunate to be a founding member of.
Oh, awesome.
That means I wrote a check. So I mean, but having said that, uh, Mike, in one day, one of the developers, and I wish I could say which name, created a clone of him,
Oh.
cloned his voice and cloned him. And he does the intro to these AI things as the clone.
Right. Yes, I have heard of
And
that.
it's shocking. I mean, you know, I've known this guy for 20 years and I thought it was him. You know, especially since we tend to, because of our still relatively small bandwidths that we
Yeah.
can move around the world, we tend to, when we see anything that's a little odd, the frame chatters a little or the sound drops for a second or whatever, we assume that's the technology, you know,
Mm,
that the internet just did that. I mean, if the internet did everything we blamed it for, man, it would get a timeout like you wouldn't believe. But it doesn't. And as it changes, our expectations are going to change. You know, people are going to want to see the depth of field that you show at your house. You know, all of these things, and some of them, it really gets hard to tell.
yes.
I mean, here's Elon Musk's guy driving in
Oh, look.
space. Isn't
Wow.
that amazing? Driving the Tesla in space.
Wow.
Yeah, and that actually was a real picture, by the way.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, it was a camera
Oh,
mounted
the
on the car.
minions. Everyone loves the minions.
Yes, they do. And that's why I use them. And but I've got other shots in here, like here's me hanging out with the gang,
Oh my
and that
goodness.
kind of thing. But
Oh,
we're
that's
bored, so let's
crazy.
go to Italy for a couple minutes. Uh, isn't technology just freaking awesome?
It is. It is really awesome. And the thing is, it's getting smarter and smarter over the years as
Right.
well. Well, Mike, before we come to the end of this episode, do you have any last words for our audience?
They still need to produce massive amounts of content to be successful.
Hmm.
They need to let people know what they know before the people hire them to do what they do. And having said that, they need to be very careful that every bit of content they produce is accurate and truthful. It's so easy now to propagate lies.
Yes.
And I I trust everybody to begin with till the first time I see you lying. Then I never trust you again.
Right.
It just and our social interactions are that fragile. It used to be when you lived in a town of only a 500,000 and there was only one brain surgeon in the town. He could be an arrogant asshole. Had
Yeah.
no competition, and when people needed him, they didn't argue about the price.
Right.
That's no longer true because now there's three of them in that town, and each one of them has robotic surgery assistants so they can triple their production. So
Mm.
now he's learned that maybe being a butt wasn't quite the best marketing plan. Uh,
Right.
and so
Exactly.
he
And
so
so
he goes away.
it does, yes. And so,
No,
Mike,
see,
at this point, if people are thinking, oh my goodness,
sorry.
I need to get hold of Mike Lewis. Where do I go to connect with him? Where can they go?
Well, always their best bet is to go to the information leader that introduced me to them. In this case, their best bet would be to reach out to you.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is you were bright enough to bring me on here, but you also brought a bunch of other people on, so you're kind of an aggregator. And when you have a choice, go to the aggregator first and get their opinion.
Right.
Then I still want you to contact me, but not until your aggregator, who you trust, has said that, yeah, oh, you want to do that? Mike can help you with that. So that's the best way, is go to the aggregator you trust, tell him what you need, and then listen to him. There's nothing more frustrating as a coach than having customers that I lovingly call assholes. And what what they do is they ask you for an answer to solve a problem. You stop what you're doing, take the time to help them out and give them the correct answer, and then they ignore it and go do something totally different. Uh,
Right.
that's very frustrating. And
Definitely.
saying "I told you so" doesn't help either.
Right.
They can reach me though at brandedexpertpublishing.com. And if they want to know more about me personally, my personal website is the letter C as in cat, Mike Lewis. So that's cmikeLewis.com. And they can reach me through either of those. But quite frankly, I'm going to give them my cell phone number too. You can reach me at country code 1, area code 404 281 6552. And that's my personal cell phone, and I live in the Eastern time zone. So the only restriction on calling me directly is please be cognizant of what time of the day it is, because we're publishing books in 18 countries. And like, I know it's going on 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is about probably midday for Kay in
Mhm.
England, whereas it's only quarter to 11 here. So be cognizant of that, and I'm welcome any calls though if people think I can help them. And I have scheduling software and all that other stuff that you can find on the websites if you don't want to call me up cold. But but I'm really a nice guy, and I've never been rude to anybody on the phone that called between 7 a.m. and about 10 p.m. Eastern. After 10 p.m. Eastern, I don't know who's going to wake up. You know? Could be me. It could be that mean old SOB that yells at the kids in the yard.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
so
Mike, that's awesome. Thank you so much for even dropping your telephone number. You are the first to have done that. That is awesome. And guys, please, if you're listening to this, take on board of Mike's time zone. He is in East Coast in the US. So if you are going to be contacting him, being mindful of that. But all the links that he has already mentioned will also be in the show notes as well. So make sure you scroll down, take a look at that, go and find out what else Mike is doing. He does so many different things, so many different experiences. So he's got so much knowledge. And I'm sure that he'll be able to help you in your business, especially when it comes to creating content. So please, please, please do feel free to reach out to him when you listen to this episode. Mike, thank you so much for coming on to this episode.
you're very welcome, and I'll come back anytime that I've got a good message, which is what I think the Ideas Worth Knowing project is. It's quite frankly, I charge $20,000 for a full book.
Oh, wow.
And we gross about 5,000 on these little books and earn a lot less than that. But I've talked to several people out of buying the $20,000 product because I knew for a fact that the less expensive one would do better for them. And I'm blessed to be at that period of my life when I can make those decisions.
Yeah.
You know, my rent's not due. You know, I mean, and I think people tend to be as honest as they can afford to be. You know, I try not to judge. I mean, I grew up in a ghetto. I mean, on the wrong side of the tracks. I may have done a thing or two to get ahead in business. I mean, because I've been in business. This is my 50th year, and because that's what happens when you start when you're 16. But had a job though from 16 to 17, so I don't count that. I
Great.
don't know about your experience, but my job sucked. And I
Yeah.
hear they still do, so I'm never going to get a second one.
No, absolutely not.
But
Thank you once again, Mike. It was a
thank you
riot having
too,
you here.
and let's end this so that I can talk to you about that new book that you're doing that you didn't know about.
Brilliant. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.